Dear students, in this class we will try to understand what is known as Davison-Germer experiment. As you can see, we are going to discuss Davison-Germer experiment. So, what is this Davison-Germer experiment is all about? Davison-Germer experiment is an experiment to verify or to confirm the de Broglie's hypothesis. That is, it is an experiment to confirm or to verify the de Broglie's hypothesis. In the previous class, we have discussed about the de Broglie's hypothesis. What is that? According to de Broglie, a particle like electron or a proton or a neutron which is in motion is always associated with a wave. The wavelength of that wave is given by lambda equals to h by p. So, de Broglie says that the particles like electrons, protons, neutrons, when they are in motion, they have a wave nature. A wave is associated with that moment. The wavelength of that wave is given by lambda equals to h by p. But there was no proof for that de Broglie's hypothesis. In physics, if anybody says something, it has to be proved experimentally. So, the de Broglie hypothesis, that is, the particles like electrons, protons, neutrons which are in motion are associated with the waves like called as the matter waves or the de Broglie waves or the pilot waves and having a wavelength of lambda equals to h by p. E has to be proved. So, this de Broglie hypothesis was proved by an experiment known as Davison-Germer experiment. Therefore, I say Davison-Germer experiment is an experimental proof for the de Broglie's hypothesis. So, we will try to understand what is this Davison-Germer experiment is all about. So, look at this diagram. This is the experimental block diagram for Davison-Germer experiment. Let us try to understand all these components one by one. So, here we have what is known as F. What is F? F stands for filament. What is C? C is a cylinder. What is this? This is a target. It's basically a nickel target. And what is this? It's a low tension battery. What is known as B1. What is this? B2. What is known as a high tension battery. So what is this? This is a collector. What is known as we can call it as a movable collector. Movable collector which collects all the scattered electrons. A movable collector. This movable collector is interconnected to a galvanometer. So this is a galvanometer. So this entire setup is kept in what is called as an evacuated chamber. Evacuated chamber. So now let's try to understand the working part. How it works. So here, when you switch on the battery B1, which is a low tension battery, what happens? The filament gets heated up. Once the filament gets heated up, what it does? It liberates the electrons. It liberates the electrons. So here the electrons are liberated. So what we want is, we want to accelerate them. We want to accelerate these electrons to a desired particular velocity. So in order to accelerate these electrons which are liberated from the filament, what we are doing here? We are connecting here a cylinder. That cylinder is interconnected to a battery B2 which is a high tension battery. So what happens? We know that electrons are basically negative in charge. So these electrons will be attracted towards the positive charge. Means they are accelerated. So these electrons which are liberated here, they are made to accelerate in this direction by connecting this cylinder to a high tension battery. This is a low tension battery. This is a high tension battery. The electrons are negatively charged, so they are made to move towards the positive charge, which is connected here as a high tension battery. So these electrons can be accelerated with the help of this high tension battery, what is known as B2. So the electrons which are liberated here, now they are accelerated in this direction. So what is this job of this cylinder C? C job is, here when the electrons are liberated, they will be scattered in all directions. They will be scattered in this direction, in this direction, in this direction, in this direction. They will be scattered in all the directions. But what we want is, we want the fine collimated beam of electrons. We want a narrow single beam of electrons. So in order to achieve a collimated beam of electrons, we are using a cylinder C. So what this C does, when the electron beams comes out of this, there will be a small opening. There will be a small opening on this side, small opening on this side. So when the electron enters here, it comes out of this cylinder. What we get is a narrow collimated beam of electrons. Right? So the job of this cylinder C is to give a narrow collimated beam of electrons. So these electrons are now made to hit on the target material. So we have the electrons from the filament, they are accelerated to a higher velocity with the help of the hydrogen battery B2, and it is made to a collimated beam with the help of the cylinder C. Now what we have an accelerated collimated beam of electrons. So these accelerated collimated beam of electrons are made to fall on the target material. That is basically a nickel crystal. When they fall on the target material, what happens? They undergo scattering. They undergo scattering in different directions. So here we see these are the scattered electrons. They are coming here, falling on the target, and they are getting scattered. They are scattered electrons. So here we have what is known as a movable collector. So what this movable collector does, it keeps on moving in this direction as the crystal moves. The collector also keeps on moving and it receives all the scattered electrons. The job of the movable collector is to keep on moving along the direction of the crystal. As the crystal moves, this also keeps on moving and it collects all the scattered electrons in this movable collector. And these collected electrons are fed to what is known as a galvanometer. So what the galvanometer does? Galvanometer shows the deflection. Galvanometer shows the deflection depending upon the number of electrons received. More the number of electrons received, or in other words, more the intensity of the electrons received, more the deflection in the galvanometer. Lesser the intensity of the incoming electrons, lesser the intensity of the galvanometer. So the galvanometer shows the deflection depending upon the intensity of the incoming electrons. That is the job of the galvanometer. So this is the experimental setup. Now what the scientists called Davison and Germer they are trying to do? They are trying to scatter the electrons and they were trying to measure the intensity of the scattered electrons. Actually their aim was not to verify the de Broglie hypothesis. They were doing some other experiment. They were doing the experiment. What is the experiment? They were trying to scatter the electrons of a different velocity and they were trying to measure the intensity of the scattered electrons. While doing this experiment, accidentally they came out with a phenomena that in turn became a proof for the de Broglie's hypothesis. The aim was not to verify that, but by doing some experiment, accidentally they landed up in a conclusion that became a proof for the de Broglie's hypothesis. Right? Now, let's try to understand what's happening here. Now, the electrons are reflected, they are made a fine beam, and they fall in the diameter, and they are scattered, and they are received in the collector, and the galvanometer shows the particular deflection. So initially they sent a beam of 40 volt. A 40 volt beam was sent here. It was made to undergo scattering. The scattered beam was received in the collector, and the deflection produced by the scattered electron beam of 40 volt was noted down. Then they sent an electron beam of 44 volt. Then again it undergone the scattering. The scattered electrons were received, collected in the galvanometer, and again they noted down the intensity of the scattered electrons, which are of 44 volt. Like this, they were sending different voltage electron beams to the nickel crystal, and it was made to undergo scattering, and the scattered electrons were collected in the collector, and it was fed to the galvanometer, and the galvanometer deflection was noted down for different electron beams of different voltages. So while doing this experiment, they observed that when they sent a electron beam of 54 volt, that is, when they sent an electron beam of 54 volt, they observed a maximum deflection in the galvanometer. I repeat, first they sent an electron beam of 40 volt, 44 volt, 48 volt, then they sent an electron beam of 54 volt, then 60 volt, 64 volt. But what they observed, the important thing is, for an electron beam of 54 volt, they observed that a maximum deflection in the galvanometer was observed for electron beam of 54 volt. Now the question is, why they are observing a maximum deflection in the galvanometer for an incoming electron beam of 54 volt? That we have to understand. In order to understand that, so here, this is the, I told you, a nickel crystal. So this nickel crystal is shown in this diagram in an expanded manner. This is an expanded nickel crystal. Any crystal is made up of n number of planes which are parallel to each other. Each plane we call them as what are known as Bragg's planes. So here, this is the nickel crystal, and here we have n number of planes which are all parallel to each other, and these planes we call them as what are known as Bragg's planes. So here, this is the incoming electron beam of 54 volt. It undergone scattering here. So what is the incoming direction? The scattered direction. What is the angle between these two? The angle between the incoming beam and the scattered beam is of the order of 50 degree. So if this is 50 degree, then what is this angle? This angle is what is known as Bragg's angle. If you expand this is the one plane. What is the total angle from here to here? It's going to be 180 degree. So if this is 50 degree, so here we are left with, this is the theta, this is also theta. Both has to be same. So if this is 50 degree, remaining is what? Out of 180 degree out of 180. If you subtract 50 degree, 130 is left out. So that 130 degree has to be divided into 2. So this is 65 degree, this is also 65 degree. So this angle is what is known as Bragg's angle, which is the order of 65 degree. I repeat, so when they sent a beam of 54 volt electron beam, they observed maximum deflection in the galvanometer. Right? So for that, what is the incident angle and the scattering angle? This is of the order of 50 degree. But what is the Bragg's angle? That is the angle between the incident light and the Bragg plane. That is the order of 65 degree. Now, so here we have what is known as the Bragg's law. What is the Bragg's law? As per the Bragg's law, whenever you have a crystal which is made up of n number of Bragg's planes, the incident X-ray beam undergoes Bragg's diffraction whenever the condition n lambda equals to 2d sin theta is met. That is, if you have a crystal which is made up of n number of planes, when you have an incident beam, that is an X-ray beam, this incident X-ray beam is found to undergo Bragg's diffraction whenever the condition n lambda equals to 2d sin theta is met. Here what is n? Order of the spectrum. It can be 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on and so. What is lambda? Wavelength of the incoming beam. What is the d? The distance between the two planes. That is the distance between the two Bragg planes. That is interplanar distance. What is known as d? What is the theta? This theta is nothing but the Bragg's angle. So, as per the Bragg's law, the incident light or an X-ray beam will undergo Bragg's diffraction whenever the condition n lambda equals to 2d sin theta is met. When it undergoes Bragg's diffraction, what we observe is, we observe a maximum intensity in the scattered beam. That is the Bragg's law. So here, we are trying to apply this to Bragg's law as per this equation. That is, according to Bragg's law, we have n lambda equals to 2d sin theta. Now we are trying to substitute the same here. We are trying to substitute the same. What is n? N we take it as 1 to make it a simple one, first order spectrum. N equals to 1. We want to calculate lambda value. 2 as it is. What is the distance between the two planes? For a given nickel crystal, the value of d is determined by some other method. What is the value of d? The value of d is going to be 0.91 angstrom or 0.91 into 10 to minus 10. That is the value of d for the given nickel crystal. It is already determined by some other method. Then into sin theta. What is sin theta? Sine of 65. What is 65? This I told you, the Bragg's angle. This angle is 50 degree, therefore this angle is going to be 65 degree. That is the Bragg's angle. So sin 65. We calculate all these values, we get the value of lambda. What is the value of lambda? The lambda is going to be 0.165 nanometer. So what we did here we calculated the wavelength of the scattered beam for an electron of 54 volt, for which the scientist Davison and Gerber got the maximum intensity. Why maximum intensity? Because they were getting the maximum intensity because at that particular angle of 65 degree, for that particular voltage of 54 volt, that electron beam was undergoing, or it was satisfying the Bragg's equation. What is the Bragg's equation? As per the Bragg's law, whenever an incident X-ray beam falls on a given crystal, which is made up of n number of Bragg planes, it undergoes Bragg's diffraction and produces a maximum intensity in the diffracted beam whenever the condition n lambda equal to 2d sin theta was met. In this case also, this condition was met at an angle of 65 degree for a value of b for the nickel crystal of 0.91. Therefore, we were getting the maximum intensity in the galvanometer. Why? Because of the condition that n lambda equal to sin theta is met at this particular angle of 65 degree for an electron beam of 54 volt. We calculated the value of lambda by applying the Bragg's equation, that is by applying the Bragg's diffraction. Remember, diffraction is what? Diffraction is a wave phenomenon. So by applying the wave phenomena, by applying the wave nature for the electrons, that is, we are applying here the wave nature for the electrons, because what we are supplying here? We are supplying the electrons. So these electrons are assumed to undergo diffraction. They are assumed to undergo diffraction just like X-ray diffraction. So by assuming that the electrons are undergoing diffraction just like X-ray diffraction, we are calculating the wavelength of those electrons by applying the Bragg's law. And when we calculated that, we got the value of lambda as what? 0.165 nanometer. First condition. Then in the second part, so now here, okay, what about this diagram? As you can see, this diagram indicates what? A maximum peak here. A maximum peak here at an angle of what? At an angle of 50 degree. Is what? For the remaining angles of 40 degree or 60 degree, the peak was low. Means the peak is observed but only at an angle of what? 50 degree. That is what? This angle. At an angle of 50 degree, we observe a maximum peak in the galvanometer. The same is shown in terms of graph here. Number of scattered electrons and the corresponding angle between the incident light and the scattered light. So, for an angle of 50 degree, they observe the maximum differential in the galvanometer. The same is shown in terms of a graph here. For 50 degree, they observe the maximum deflection. Right? Now we try to apply the de Broglie hypothesis. What is the de Broglie hypothesis? According to de Broglie, a particle in motion, a particle like electron or a proton or a neutron, a particle in motion is associated with a wave. That is, I told you in the previous class, if you have an electron, if this electron is in motion, this is associated with a wave. The wavelength of this wave is given what? Lambda equals to h by p. Lambda equals to h by p, or this equation of lambda equals to h by p can also be expressed as h divided by m into v, or that equals to h divided by root of 2m ev. H divided by root of 2m ev, where m is mass of the electron, e is charge of the electron, and v is the applied potential difference. If we substitute all these values, we get a value of what? We get a value of 1.266 divided by root v. So what we are doing here? We have supplied an electron beam of 54 volt. What is the applied voltage? 54 volt. So by applying this de Broglie hypothesis, now we are trying to calculate the wavelength associated with that electron. What is that? For 54 volt electron beam, lambda equals to 1.266 divided by root 3 nanometer. The same thing what I showed here. So here all these are, this is a constant value. What is applied voltage now? 54 volt. So if you substitute 54 volt here, right, and if you calculate the lambda value, what we get is, we get the answer of lambda equal to 0.166 nanometer, right? So this is the lambda value we obtained by applying the de Broglie's hypothesis, by considering this incident electron beam of 54 volt. By applying the de Broglie hypothesis, we calculate the lambda value. Here we calculate lambda value by applying the X-ray diffraction as per the Bragg's law. So this is by applying purely the wave nature of light, that is X-ray diffraction. This is by applying the de Broglie hypothesis. Now if you compare this result and this result, this is 0.165 nanometer, this is 0.166 nanometer. This result and this result are in excellent agreement with each other. So this is the lambda value according to Bragg's diffraction, according to the wave nature of light. This is the lambda value calculated according to the de Broglie's hypothesis. So but both results are in excellent agreement with each other. So these results clearly indicate that whatever de Broglie has said, that is a particle in motion is always associated with a wave. The wavelength of that wave is given by lambda equals to h by p, or h by m into v, or h by root of 2 m ev, or 1.26 by root v. If you substitute the value of V as a 54 volt, we get this value, and then it will be exactly same as that of the Bragg's diffraction. So this agreement result clearly shows that whatever de Broglie has said is 100% correct. Or in other words, this becomes an experimental proof for the de Broglie's hypothesis. An experimental proof for the de Broglie's hypothesis. So that's why we say Darwin-Germer experiment is an experiment to verify the de Broglie's hypothesis. Or in other words, this was the first experiment which proved experimentally whatever the de Broglie has said. That is, the de Broglie hypothesis of matter waves is proved experimentally by this experiment. So in this class we will discuss about the Davison experiment, Davison-Germer experiment, and we will discuss how the de Broglie hypothesis is verified experimentally. Right? So we will stop at this point. We will take care. We will discuss in the next class some other topic. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.